So, to me, if you want to be a high-tier character, you have to not only have good matchups against a wide variety of decks, but you have to have no losing matchups to a top cuts deck if you know the meta, right? And so that's really the issue here when we do these tier lists before the cards have come out, before everything. It's all speculative. That's the most fun time, don't get me wrong. That's the time to do it. However, for me personally, my S tier is the decks that if you're very serious about competition, you believe wholeheartedly that a 52% is something you would always choose over a 51%, regardless of play style or flavor or anything else, right? You know, then those are going to be my S tier decks. Those are going to be my characters that I think if you're really serious about competitive play, you would probably only be playing these decks. So I know a lot of times there's decks that are put into the S tier and it's like, well, you only lose to this one deck, right? And those decks don't have good matchups. For me, that's not going to cut it. You know, for me, S tier is the serious tier, and I typically only I don't think I've ever put more than 3 characters into an S tier. So A tier is going to be the meta, right? This is going to be the field. Here, let me change these names. Can I change these? Yeah. Serious. That's just funny to me to call it the serious tier. So this is going to be the field. This is going to be all the decks that I think would comprise our current metagame. You know, this is going to be the decks that you're not surprised to see in top cuts, and maybe they got second place, but they're not the ones that won. They didn't go on like any of the sprees like Asui or Momo did. It's just going to be the field of decks that people are going to be playing. And then B tier is going to be the Jose / JJ tier. These are going to be decks where if you told me Jose Narono or Jacob Johnson topped with these decks, I wouldn't bat an eye at it, but I would be surprised at, you know, some other people, right? This is probably decks I wouldn't pick to win an event, probably ever. And then C tier is going to be your locals. These are going to be decks who I think can 3-0 your locals. Let me turn this down a bit. I think it's too loud. I don't know. So, hopefully the music wasn't too loud for the intro. But yeah, this will be your locals tier. These are going to be decks that you could probably run rampant, and just like the skill difference can get you there. But then these are going to be the stinkers. D tier is going to be like a deck I don't think even functions, right? Like compared to other games, typically like there's rogue decks, which you would take to a competition, right? And then there's just like, here's a deck that does a thing. You know, there's very like hyper-focused casual decks. Usually they're like crazy combo decks, and they're the kind of decks that you take to a locals and you're just happy if it pulls off its thing at any time. And, you know, usually you're not under too much pressure to operate quickly at locals, right? People are usually playing turn 1, turn 2 decks, so you get to have a little more fun with it, right? So in Universus, because the system mechanics are so heavily favored like to the turn player in a lot of ways, you know, we talk about pretty much any deck can OTK if you are completely defenseless, right? So I've heard all the time from people who see a tier list and are like, wow, that's crazy, man. My Deku 2 or, you know, my Endeavor deck just absolutely destroys people. And you're like, oh, wow, really? You know, how do you do it? And it's like, oh, well, I'm Endeavor and I have 98 cards. So after I've survived on 4 health on turn 7, it's not a deck I expect to see in the top cut. So those decks still function, though. They still have a bunch of upside. You know, you can feel really good about playing Endeavor a lot of the time compared to more outside meta decks. So I think all of these decks function until you get to stinkers. All of these decks are like decks that, you know, if you check well, your opponent doesn't check well, you can get there. But the serious tier, it's probably not going to be more than 2 characters in there. Anyhow, that's enough preamble. That's enough letting you know my qualifications for each tier. Let's jump right into it. First, should I go like directly in order? This is, I think this is an alphabetical order. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let's just jump into and go alphabetical. So we have All Might 2. This is going directly into JJ tier. This is exactly the kind of deck that I think skilled pilots, I think experienced players can recognize. You know, the tons of value you can generate. He gets a whole bunch of really cool tools. A lot of people are looking at I'm probably going to mention this a lot, but the barrage lineup, right? The rapid speed punches and the hardened barrage. That combination is going to be, I think, something people try out in almost every character that can run it. Anytime you sit down against characters on those symbols, you're going to have to think about that attack lineup, I think. So he just gets so much cool stuff. The block punishment is really relevant, right? And of course, being able to draw cards for momentum is really cool. I think, though, that still being not 100% aggressive, right? Because you can draw those cards on defense. But I still think that the trade-off and the way you have to operate to do things like that, i.e. eating an unblocked attack, there's still not enough of a payoff there. And I think he's still going to struggle to really punish the super defensive decks. Like, I think this character also looks really bad into Recovery Girl, just because of like the mill clock on yourself versus a deck that is already trying to just reduce the damage it takes, right? So still really strong offensively, but his symbols didn't pick up the craziest defensive tricks. However, one with nature, this character being in a top cut actually wouldn't be that surprising, so could be in the field, right? The field is probably going to be the majority actually of characters, just because the strength of offensive tools is going up. But next up is All Might 3, already a super strong character, already super relevant in the field, and nothing's really going to change too much for this character. There is some really cute things you can do coming up, though. Heroic Clash, clearing the card pool, making both players draw 2 cards, looks really spicy in a character that is fine with you drawing cards once you're all tapped out. On top of that, still has the double punch lineup coming up, and there's just a lot of really cool things you can do on the air symbol. He's going to get another card another foundation that can ready itself. So all 3 of his symbols are getting things that are really good for his game plan, and drawing 2 cards on top of 30 health, right? Being able to offset that cost better than the other All Might just makes it so you can play a later game much easier. And he's actually really on the tip of serious. He might actually be one of the top 3. Like, I'm not saying we're gonna have a rock paper scissors triangle 3-deck format or anything, a tier 0 kind of a thing, but he's super close. And if the synergies pay off, you know, better than I think they will, then he will be up in that upper echelon. So True Form All Might, he's really close to a stinker, but I'm pretty sure you could dunk your locals still. They're not giving him too much support for the death symbol, which is probably the symbol you could make the most use out of with his style of play right now. So that's kind of sad, but it's kind of just how it is, right? Like, the identity symbols for All Might are so clearly the all and good symbol, and because of the way character cards are in MHA and off symboling and stuff like that, you're almost never gonna be able to make a death deck with this character. And then that being said, he does get a lot more fuel, so I think just getting more character cards to put into your deck and more options for that first form keeps him out of the stinker tier. Next up we have I think this is 7. I'm gonna have to double check. Alright, I knew this was gonna happen. I knew this was gonna come up. So I gotta see which art, because I recognize Ball Might, I recognize Squall Might. So okay, no, so okay, the next one has the sword. Alright, I didn't see the sword in the back. Let's go. So this is All Might 5. This is Smash Might. Twice per turn after you play a card with Smash its name, draw a card. And then Enhance, flip 1 foundation. Your Fury or Punch attack gets 2 speed or 2 damage. Very flexible, right? He basically took the starter deck foundations and just turned that into a character ability. Just E flip plus 2 speed, or I guess 2 damage. It's even more flexible than the starter deck foundations. And then he actually has a deadlock ability. The first character with a deadlock ability, but it's only once per game, and it's pretty much just the hero killer deadlock, but for cards with Smash in their name. So, yeah. I don't know. We probably don't have any non-attack cards with Smash in their name, but I'm wondering if there would be a funny interaction with giving stun to a foundation. Anyway, before I get off the rails, let's put Smash Might in the locals tier, which is probably going to upset some people. Cantrip attacks and cantrip blocks are very powerful, right? They are very cool. However, there's no low block Smash. If there was a low block Smash, I could easily put him in the Jose/JJ tier. You know, if there was a low block Smash, he could maybe even be in the field. But right now, low attacks are going to come back in a big way, and we'll probably talk about that more once we see some water symbol characters. Then we have Squall Might. Squall Might is the promo. I think it was Gen Con. It might have been Origins, but I think because of the weapon, yeah, D&D. Anyway, he buffs ranged or weapon attacks, but only gives speed, no damage, and then responds after your attack deals 6 or more damage. You can draw 2 cards, and after you block an attack for the 3rd time, you can commit your rival's character. So it's going to be very difficult to put together long strings against this character, and I love him in a sideboard sense. I actually think that pretty much all the All Mights, pretty much all the characters on, or not all the All Mights, but all the characters on the All Are Good symbol who are running a ranged or weapon package will want to side him, and it will come up pretty rarely, but there's definitely like Jiro decks, there's decks that are pretty committed to hitting you like more than 3 times, right? And if you can put up the defense to really punish your opponent for having long strings, and you have good resets on board, you can really dictate the pace of a match. That being said, having a really strong poke game, I think, is going to be pretty important in set 3. Like, and the few characters that are going to be really good at long strings are going to not care about their character being committed. So, this would probably be sick if he had the defense if he had just like -2 defense. Like, if he could give weapon attacks -2, he'd be automatically like a great sideboard option against Momos. Just being like, look, you can't do that long home run comet string against me, but with like so long to wait till your defense kicks in, I think he's still just a locals deck. Yeah. And then All Might 1. All Might 1 should be a stinker, actually. That was my initial impression, because it's got some really cool, funny combos, but even my locals have like adequate defense for just one big funny dunk. But I also wouldn't be surprised if JJ topped with this deck. There's a lot of power in it, and while throws are getting a little worse, they're not being hit too hard in set 3, and we're getting more options to put that down. So I'm going to put them at the front of locals. This is like the definition of like a super rogue deck, right? Like, this is the deck that is top or bottom, because I believe in like the Pippa Smash style of play. I just think that 30 health isn't enough. You like, if you slapped Kiroshima 2 response onto this All Might, like, fixes so many problems for him, right? But as it stands, 530 is rough. Yeah, one of these All Mights actually isn't legal until they say he is, but he is on the tier list. So I think it's the D&D one, right? The Sword Might. Squall Might I don't think is legal, but he's not super tantalizing on face. I like the idea, but like blocking 3 attacks, it's like it's not just after your opponent plays 3 attacks, right? You still have to block them, so like there's gonna be plenty of decks that can string together 4 or 5 attacks, and you're probably not gonna be able to afford to block one of the first 3. I don't know. I could be surprised. Then we have Aoyama. Is this 1 or 2? He's literally doing like the same pose. I can tell by the symbols this is 2. Okay. Aoyama 2. There is some really nice aggressive lines for this deck, but because they banned Unwavering Slash, he's gonna look pretty funny at your locals while not being able to do much. He's got some nice stats, I suppose, and being able to get a momentum it's not nothing, right? Like, you can theoretically activate Twisting Blue, Azure, Inferno. The one that gives +1 to your check and -1 to your opponent's checks. The Azure Inferno Twist attack. You know, he does give +3 damage, right? And he does actually get a momentum, but I think that he's just way too restrictive. In a world where he shares 2 symbols with Toga, like, you have to think to yourself, would I give up Toga's additional speed and filter simply for that momentum most of the time? So they really could have given him like +2 speed for 1 health, just because it's so similar. You know, same stat line, 2 out of 3 symbols, and then I just don't see that. Like, there was a time where the air symbol with a bunch of charge attacks, and he had Sports Festival, and you know, it was very close to like the air Denki list, but didn't have a once per game linchpin. You could survive a second turn, so you could tech a little more towards defense, but you know, without access to that, it looks real rough for this guy. And then we have the sideboard man himself, Aoyama 2. Blisteringly good offensively, but still no real defensive tech, so still not super high on this character, even coming out of the sideboard. But he's got too much, like, unlike Aoyama 2, he's got too much flexibility and too much back alley haymaker. I would actually not be surprised to see Jose Narono just make a funny big punch deck and slap the shit out of somebody with it. Or really, it'd be Bromley making it and then Jose playing it. And then we have the Asui 2 herself, still a stinker. Still no card draw. Like, has access to some dirty lines. And I do think someone could claim the bounty. By the way, please don't actually sub to the channel. I do have a sub goal for playing Asui 2. And while I do think it's possible to top 16 like a webcam provisional, especially, you know, in a new field where people are really experimental, I just don't think that this deck is doing anything super great. Tentacle Strike is funny with her. That's about the best I got. And then we have Asui 1, who is a very serious deck coming back. This one is I would be surprised if it doesn't work out, right? Like, there's a world where everyone's overhyping it and Dry Eyes isn't that big a deal, but like, life is still legit in her. Air actually got a scary tool. I actually think that playing 13's attack, the gravity hold or whatever, God, there's so much gravity stuff happening. Black hole. Her attack that makes you discard a card. Like, if you're trying to block like the 5-6 Asui attacks, and the first 2 attacks she plays are like 7 mid for 5. Hey, you want, or was it 6 mid for 5? You discard a card. You just remove one from the game. You know, you will have to contend with Recovery Girl's action, which would be the only reason why I wouldn't even try that in a tournament. I would stick to the Dry Eyes formula. But yeah, you just got like an almost exclusively low attack lineup coming. She's gonna have access to stun. You can still play momentum generation and get paid for that. It's still way too much stuff she's getting to not think she's gonna be serious. Notably, one of the few decks that can play creepy realization and block 5 attacks. So the Gamer Toga deck probably doesn't have like a great matchup into this deck. Definitely going to be something people are trying to do at Nats. So regardless of whether or not you think she's cream of the crop, you're going to have to be ready to fight these Asuris. Then we have Backdraft, who's a stinker. He's going to do all kinds of shit that other decks are already going to be trying to do, and then get like a reverse payoff for it. So not a ton of flexibility, but could definitely do some funny dunks. And then we have the Bakugo that loses to Faith's Shield, and then we have the Bakugo that doesn't lose to Faith's Shield, and the Bakugo that actually has some really sick potential coming up. He gets help in the format of those bracers, and we're also gonna see like really good tools for getting super long lines. I think Fierce Whirlwind is actually kind of nuts in him. You might not have to be using your character enhance to punch stuff through and still activate all of his synergies, so he's gonna get some extra stuff. No defensive ability on face, still makes it very hard at this literal planning stage, right? Like before you see the deck in action and stuff like that, like if you have to draw your defensive pieces, it's pretty tough. Usually you're going to want to be like a life deck that has access to card draw and all the nuts life cards. So Cement Toss is, I think, down to a locals deck. I think we figured out it's not that hype. It's kind of sad that like he was hyped up so much, and on paper it looks so good, but especially this early format, people are going to be coming for your throat, and being a 6-hander with like 15 health left, not going to feel great. It's just not going to feel good. On top of that, we do have a couple of attacks that punish redding foundations in like a carte blanche kind of way. There's just like, we're just evolving in a meta past drawing 1,000 cards on turn 3, I think. So yeah, he might actually get up to the Jose JJ tier, just because like unlimited damage pump does close games out, but his defensive abilities I don't think are going to be as relevant. This is a big thing. Dabi is going to be the field. He's going to be in the metagame. He's going to be a mainstay, I think. I will not be surprised to see this character top after his new Twisting Azure attack hits. Being able to consistently activate that is proving to be a deck qualifier. That's like where like one of the things I'm starting at is I'm looking at, okay, who can activate the enhance on Twisting Azure, because it's such a strong effect and it's going to allow you to have really ambitious deck building. So the ability to add even 2 damage right now on face could become super relevant. It does buff itself when you play actions as well, so I'm looking at like Eraserhead too. So just anyone who has good synergy with Twisting Azure, and we've seen now that once per game, you know, put in some work against some of the more defensive decks. We've seen the way that like you can kind of force a game plan through, and seeing the evolution of these 3 symbols, Chaos, Death, and Fire, in a Twisting Azure world should be pretty interesting. Gunhead, I think this is actually JJ tier just because the abilities are super sick. You get some really nice control, but it's a little overcosted for me. Both playing a 5 difficulty attack lineup, and because I feel like you're kind of stuck in this weird place where you're still just playing Kiroshima cards. Like, not everything has to be a 5 diff, but like not putting stats on your stuff really sucks. And blowing up a foundation every turn, it's not the rate it looks like, especially if you're going to commit to and they're just going to build out and then they block your lineup, and then you commit to and then they build out. Like, it really does add up in my experience playing both Sasquatch and playing Death Arms in early testing. And then we have Deku 2, who looks like people are really hyped for him with One with Nature, but One with Nature actually just makes him obsolete. And then Deku 1, which is a sub-gold tier character. Then we've got Then we've got Denki 2. Denki 2 has some really spicy builds, but they're really dependent on some good draws. There's not a lot of great ways to draw on the Chaos symbol, which is where like a lot of his really good new tools come from. But I think Order and Void, actually do get enough nice new tools that I think we're gonna see. Kaminari 2 show up in some top cuts. I'm gonna be putting a lot of time into this character myself because I love the idea of building up this resource. Like, there's this clock, like you can watch me build up to your doom, so to speak. But it's not. They're not like overwhelming game-winning combos, and also you're losing a lot of random information. I find when playing him, like, if I can get like 5 enhances off, at some point I have like 10 cards left in my deck, and I actually don't know what they are, right? So there's a few times where, you know, the eccentricities of this character can come back to haunt you. So if you don't have wealthy aspirations out to look at your momentum, which is not something people usually use it for. Typically you want it to gain momentum, you want to get a bunch of momentum. So it'll be fun to see this deck get worked on, because I don't think it's going to play like most decks, but at the same time, you know, never underestimate the ability to just dump 5 momentum and completely tap your opponent out for a turn. So really looking forward to it. The big thing is that sludge attack, right? It's the whatever the slime guy's attack is, where you get a momentum, and if you have 1 momentum, you can gain an additional momentum. I think the playline you're gonna see a lot is like, play this attack first, you know, or play a charge attack, drain all your momentum, and then play this attack and get a momentum, and then get a second momentum, and then maybe flip a wealthy aspirations, and then they're completely tapped out and you have 3 momentum. So if you can maneuver to a board state like that, you can probably win with most lineups. Denki 1 also gets a lot of really sick stuff, including that Twisting Azure card is a charge attack. So if you get +1 to your checks and then clear your card pool, man, it's gonna be sick. It does suck that you would be locked into playing Chaos with it, and there are not a lot of great ways to draw cards on Chaos. But Denki has proven to be one of the best, like, no defensive ability characters, and Chaos has actually had great defense this whole time. It's just never been enough to piece everything together to beat the Life in the Earth decks. So hopefully we can get past it can't be fixed in set 3. I'm looking at like Fierce Whirlwind, right? Flip my first attack, destroy the it can't be fit. Well, it still gets to build one. Man, never mind. It's playable while committed and doesn't ready itself, so that actually wouldn't work. Anyhow, Ectoplasm, he gets the clones. You could see this in the field, but I don't think it's going to be super strong, and it's like hovering. I'm trying to think if I would actually be surprised that someone I know working on this deck and topping. I think you're going to absolutely trash your locals if you're a dedicated Ectoplasm player. So I'll put it in the JJ tier. I'll put this up in the Jose tier because I do think that playing 8 of the same copy of an attack is funny enough and is consistent enough that you will get your characters, and I would love to see this deck be super legit in the future. Endeavor 2, he's actually got some real strong abilities, and he has a bunch of support, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this character be like a new Kiroshima 2 almost, like just as far as super solid on both sides of the board, but he doesn't fuck with resources too much. And that's something I haven't talked about yet, because there's a lot of cards coming out where you might not have to rely on your character so much to cheat your card pool, ready foundations, build new ones, blah blah blah, etc etc. But he does have the shiny card that removes cards from his card pool. He has like a difficulty reduction in his kit, so he doesn't have to rely on face for it, but he's probably just a locals deck. Endeavor 1, also going to be the locals tier. He's a funny, haha, big damage number. He's like the green deck, right? He's like the mono green stompy player who just wants to get out the Gigantosaur and say, ho ho, you don't actually have something to stop my 10-10, and, you know. Yeah, his attacks are all just so big that eventually, it's like Cementos, right? They're right next to each other for a reason. This character is actually pretty scary. I really want to undersell Eraserhead 2 because I don't think he's interesting. I don't think he's like super cool. But his response is going to be something I wish I had in my deck. His response is going to be something I wish I had on a foundation so bad. And I'm going to have to settle for just flashing most attacks. But the ability to... Because he draws... Let me double check. He draws if you block it all, right? If it's completely blocked. That's what I was afraid of. So he doesn't get to seal the whole attack, which is what I was going to talk about, but... Yeah, I mean, partial blocking really sucks in this format anyway. But it does make him a little weak to, like, a face shield kind of a setup. I still am going to put him in the field because typically... There's only one attack, there's only one ability that you super worry about, right? Like, on Staff Strike, it's okay if you draw 2 cards if your turn's over because you can't ignore progressive to play the second one. So I'm still going to put him in the meta, and he just has stacking speed, so he's going to have just enough numbers and just enough defense to show up a lot. Eraserhead, he's finally in the serious tier. We are actually at a point where offense from your deck is going to be good enough, I think, to push things through. He's going to have great synergy with the Twisting Azure attack. Void gets a lot of really nice tools. He just gets all of his problems kind of solved. He's not going to look super different, but it's going to be more relevant than ever when you erase, is the big thing. I think he's going to be more relevant than ever when you erase, and then you're actually going to have some pretty nice card draw options. It's hard to say this, but I think you're going to see Eraserhead's drawing 2 cards more now, because you're going to be able to like sell out for defense early and then draw cards from like exhaustion and stuff like that. But the main thing is he's going to benefit from Dry Eyes on the All symbol and the Void symbol just as much as Asui will on the Water symbol, I think. So I think you're still going to see like Void Eraser be the way to go, right? Like, yeah, it's just that's going to be the symbol that has the extra card draw, that has the prone to Dry Eyes. We've seen the Death one pop up with Brute Strength. Well, now we have better versions of that, right? We have more useful versions. So yeah, I think Eraserhead's going to be right up at the top, and Eraserhead has a good matchup into Asui. Like, that's probably the biggest issue, is he's got a good matchup against the field, like we talked about, right? But he's also got the good matchup against specifically the Boogeyman that's coming for set 3. Fourth Kind. This deck is really surprising and people like it a lot, and we see it just capitalize on people's mistakes, but I think it gets worse and worse as time goes on. It's pretty close to being a stinker for me, but that once per game is like as flexible, right? It's as punching as like the Kaminari 2 once per turn, in terms of just sometimes you can tap people out and put the pieces together. You know, sometimes they're all committed and you just have the lethal in hand. Next up, we got the old Gran Torino. Gran Torino's going to come in at the Jose tier, because I think he gets some really cool stuff in this next set. I think he gets Tetsu Thrashing, has some interesting gameplay when you get down to 1 or 2 cards. He's going to force people to block more than they want to because of that attack, I think. So there's like some cute little stuff you can do to tax your opponent's hand and like make some really long strings based on like having no cards in hand. So he also gets more. He also just gets more ways to draw some cards, right? He gets like more flexibility on his other symbols, because right now you're kind of locked to your passing the torch symbol. So I'm really excited to see what he can do on the void symbol coming up. Gunhead. Gunhead is a cool locals deck. It's very safe, right? Offensively, very consistent. Puts pressure on people. Doesn't have anything like super cool or super unfair he can do that I know of. So yeah, it's just a really annoying deck to fight, but I think most decks are going to be prepared to deal with a Gunhead style offense. Next up, this is going to be probably my hot take to a lot of people. And this is Toru 2. I think Toru 2 is just a fine, okay deck. I don't think I've ever struggled to fight a Toru 2. I'm sure I've dropped the game to it, right? I'm sure I've failed to kill one and then I'm tapped out. Like, this is a big one where if you do the math right and you keep your foundations ready and you have a copy of Release on board, it's just, man, she's absolutely going to trash you when she has one with nature, but so will every other deck that plays it, right? And we're seeing a bunch of people play water where don't even have access to that card. I don't see it coming together for this deck. It's very weird how many people love it. And it boils down to like +2 speed most of the time. I don't know what I'm missing, guys. I really don't. It's like effectively sometimes +3 speed once you get like late game, and like playing around your foundation count is something people are already doing. Staying out of deadlock is going to be easier than ever, so like staying out of 8 foundations. I guess early game turn 2 it is really good, where your opponent builds 5 and +2 speed. There is not something you actually want to fight back against, and it's pretty good, but I can't see it. I'm sorry, I can't see it. This character is just beast. I'm going to even move her down to the middle in case people think that I'm doing it in order somehow. I'm not, but I'm going to move her down just in case. Toru 1, I actually think is going to be a JJ/Jose tier character, where I wouldn't be that surprised if this deck topped with dedication to it. If you build a deck around this as a starting character, I think it's fine. Like, I think she'll be really good. And then I'm also going to put this here specifically because there's a chance she's meta. There's a very good chance that like her Flash 1 attack is just very similar to the Aizawa response, right? Where it's just like, I'm immune to Staff Strike, sorry. I'm immune to the first Twisting Azure. You don't get to do your funny haha bullshit. Like, she's gonna have a linchpin against other stuff in the format, but she's also gonna have a way better offense than she's ever had. Yeah, there's a chance. There's a chance that this deck is better than people think, but generally, if you look at this field right, they're almost all 6-handers. Like, this is all, like, the 6-handers are kind of okay tier. You know, the 6-handers up here have card draw in their face or have, like, really sick, big blowout potential with their once per game, once per turn style. But, it's hard for me to rate 6-handers really high. Mei Hatsumi, she's gonna be meta again. She's gonna be meta. I think things are going, like, she's gonna be, I think, a decent counter pick into Recovery Girl, where Recovery Girl partial blocking to take 5 damage on everything is not going to be something she actually wants to do. I think the scaling gets better and better, right? Because we get more infinity symbol assets. We get more assets on her symbols in general. Losing Unwavering Slash sucked a lot, but people were already playing Life with her, and the Life symbol didn't get any worse. Being able to like tutor up the asset with their new card too might be pretty sick. And I think if they ever just give her access to the Breaker 2 asset, you know, if they put like a evil asset, like one Momo can't play, and her little foundation can like go up and snag it for like a solid Breaker 2 or something even nastier, that's really, I think, what she'll look for to become like a serious deck. Because she doesn't have anything mega unfair now that Unwavering Slash is gone. Now that like Frog Lashing, like 2 of her, you know, her 2 best symbols got hit pretty hard, and they haven't delivered the weapon. They haven't like delivered the weapon support directly to the evil symbol yet. The stain stuff is okay, but the new weapon attack where you can just rip a card out of your opponent's hand does seem really appealing for a character that's trying to draw 4 cards in a turn and then go, okay, well, I'll get rid of one, you get rid of your best one. Like, I could see that coming. So watch out for this character's late game for sure. Next up, we have the Idas. There's 3 of these guys. This one is Ida 2. Ida 2 is going to be in that Jose tier. This is going to be like the Jeremy Ray tier, where Jeremy Ray and Andrew Alexa are going to work on this deck to absolutely just fuck up one character in the format, and it'll be so good at blowing up that one character that it just won't actually be meta relevant, because it's really good at killing that, you know, killing someone in this one specific fashion. But yeah, I think backup plans are a really big part of this card game. I think variants, I think, you know, having a diverse game plan. There's so many games you win because your opponent's like, oh man, I was expecting X. It's just how it is. And maybe not so much in top cuts, maybe not. Maybe that's why I'm not top 2. Maybe it plays out a bit differently. But normally I find that your opponent has cards in hand and they just were expecting something different. So if you're going to have like a super telegraphed game plan, it better be really good. Next up, it's going to be, this is Ida 3? Yeah, Ida 3. Ida 3 is a stinker. I'm sorry. If I can't put all the Idas in the same place, and they all have like really good combo turns. They pop off really well and have really good stats, because speed is such an important stat in this game. But it's just the least defensive of them, right? It's the, if we had a girl like any other in the format, like a 1 diff that was -3 speed, like, I guess he gets to play Ice Gliding. That's pretty good. I don't know. It's a stinker. It's a stinker for me. Ida 1, also a stinker. It's just been proven to me over and over again that no matter how much you think that fulfilled my duty, going first is really important, he doesn't have the offense to back it up at a once per turn. If he had joint effort offensive, right? If I could discard one moment, well, no, because he's momentum hungry too. I don't know, if there was a combo enhance I could play where I didn't have to spend momentum and do his once per turn for a second time, sure. But he's so good at killing people who just drew like shit. Same thing about Ingenium. These are actually just so close together in design, which I get. It's supposed to be, you know, they're brothers or whatever, but there's a reason one of them died, because they're not good. Looks like we have a repeat Deku, so we're just gonna squeeze you on there. Jiro finally is gonna leave. She's gonna get out of the meta. Jiro is not getting any worse, but people are just fucking tired of playing her, and she's just so single-minded. They were pretty careful not to give her nutty stuff. I don't think they gave her a foundation and it wasn't that great. So you probably won't see too many of the Air Giro coming up. I think the Disruption is going to prove better than getting cards like You Can't Escape Me, which is such a strong card for the Air symbol right now. Air needs like interaction, it needs cancels, it needs ways to just aggressively prevent your opponent from doing anything. And it kind of has that, but it's just not quite enough. And like the thing that's really, really good, right, is not dealing with progressive difficulty. And so Air does it in a way that Giro doesn't like. So if you do see Giro, it's going to be still probably relying on Staff Strike or really good momentum-based attacks. And that single linchpin is going to be something people can attack. You know, it's going to be the kind of thing where Staff Strike just loses to Eraserhead too, right? So yeah, a Nullify, like this character is going to be scared of Nullify. I don't know. I think we're going to see the departure finally from Air Giro, and then the good Giros are going to silently fade away as Nullify becomes really important as like a sideboard card. Kamui Woods, he's a stinker. Not because he's not actually really good and Jose couldn't top with him, because he's been topped with by multiple characters, but he's Kamui Woods, fuck him. This character got errated into the ground, and so he's not good. Kiroshima 2 is still going to always be meta relevant because he... Oh wait, I got him backwards. It's the same pose, guys. Yeah, Kiroshima 2 is going to stay... No, did I switch? It switched again. Alright. They're the same character. Anyhow, Kiroshima 2 is going to stay relevant because you can't just up and bop him, right? Like, Midnight's going to get a lot of play because characters like Kiroshima 2 are just not going to go away. He is being hyped up as like one of the sickest characters. He does activate Twisting Azure. He does get these super sick long strings. But I just don't see people getting as much value as they think they will from switching this lineup off the Earth symbol. He doesn't put speed on things, and we're not really getting a ton of speed in other places, but he does use actions pretty well, so he is going to stay relevant. The fire actions build is going to be something that is going to be tough to deal with against with this character. And again, just that defensive R is going to make him relevant until everybody has a Somnambulism available. Kota is one of the most overhyped decks of all time, and yet the ally cards are kind of doo-doo, but they all cantrip in him, so he's going to be part of the meta. I think a lot of people are going to play him. This is like the most actual like Jose tier character of all time, where like it's got such a weirdly specific build, you know, but the tiny little iterations between the tiny little adaptations is probably going to be the difference maker. You know, because I'm 100% wouldn't be surprised to see Jose top with Kota. He's already said he's going to play it. A person who puts a ton of dedication into a deck like this is going to figure out like the normal flow to it. It's just the ally cards aren't that insane, and he's kind of locked to a couple symbols, so not having a ton of variety is going to hurt him, I think. That being said, he still ignores progressive difficulty and draws a million cards. So it's going to look like he's taking 2 turns on you a lot, I feel. This character could be like secretly just the cement toss that everyone was afraid of. Luckily, he doesn't count foundations. So again, it's going to be very specific when he gets to have those explosive turns. But man, are they going to be just like wipeouts when he plays like 5 attacks, has tapped 5 foundations, readied 3 of them, and can play like 5 more attacks. You're just gonna fucking lose your mind. Kirogiri is kind of a nuts character. He has a lot of really hidden game plans that are waiting to be unlocked, I feel. A character I'm super interested in, but I don't have the deck building style. I'm actually probably going to talk about deck building styles Wednesday, if I can get everything I need to do done before then. But yeah, this is like a character specialist kind of a thing. So I think it's going to go here. This should really just be called the character specialist tier, but these guys also top with everything, so it is what it is. I don't think he's going to be super relevant in the metagame, though. I think if he was going to be super relevant in the metagame, just Toru 2, her response to balance stuff would be as well, but he's just like better than her at that. He's actually just has a better version. Like, I'd rather choose an attack for you to play instead of looking at the top card of your deck. I'd rather be a 7-hander, like yada yada yada. So she does put stats which would normally put her above Kirogiri, but the fact that he's a 7-hander balances it out. Midnight will be meta just based off somnambulism. She got a whole kit in this set. If there was any time for her to be meta, now would be the time. There's just no better time for her to show up and show out than at Nationals. Yeah, just being able to put tons of stats everywhere now, because she can get stats for committing, she can get stats for discarding, she's going to filter through the deck, she's going to reduce the speed of your attack. And finally, she's going to get some fucking card draw on defense. Let's go. Going to commit yourself for the enhance. Gonna pay the cost with the character, and then we're gonna draw some motherfucking cards. I want to be hyped for this character. I want to be hyped for somnambulism. I get a little softer on it as time goes on, but you know, there's a lot of really cool plays you can make, and you will get, you know, some better card draw. But I don't think she has like the raw power that Kiroshima 2 has, right? Kiroshima 2 like gets you out of bad jams. Midnight can get you out of bad hands, so it's pretty risky, and it's not quite the same, but overall, I think they're going to be in the same spot in the metagame. Mina 2. What everyone thought was going to be a sideboard character. It's still a stinker. She gets actually a lot better in this set, but in the same ways that other people are getting way better than her. That's just how it is. It's weird. If she like burned you for the face downs when you blocked, I think she'd be like way better. But the fact that she just gets bonus damage for having cards in her card pool that don't count towards progressive, but there's only so many specific ways to get them there, like, I don't know. Fierce Whirlwind is super funny in her, though. You will not get to play foundations on your committed, or you'll not play abilities on your committed foundations, so maybe that'll be more relevant than I think it will. You know what? There's maybe a build for her that's actually counter meta as fuck, but that's what people said the first time. Her symbols are lacking punches, actually. You know, you're stuck to like being a bad range deck, which just makes you look like the other characters, right? Like, and being a 6-hander, no card draw, no real defense. Depending on how big the card pool clogging is, she may be like a sideboard option for real, but again, we said that last time, so she's a stinker. Mina 1, she's a really cool locals deck. She can do some really cool specific stuff. We saw her get sideboarded and do some good work against Eraserhead, but Eraserhead's gonna go fucking bonkers in set 3, so that's probably not gonna work out anymore. Mineta 2, the Boogeyman of set 2, did make some top cuts. Did kind of become meta. It was really weird that he was making top cuts later on after Momo seeing even more success. And Tamron Cardwell talked about it being like, it's a hard matchup because I only have 4 face shields and like he actually blocks and stuff like that. So a more nuanced character than it looked like at first, but I don't think he's gonna quite make up a bunch of the meta. I don't know if we'll ever see another Mineta 2 top again. I think momentum denial might be too much for him, but he's not quite a stinker. So I'll put him down here. Mineta 1 is a stinker. Momo 2 is a cool locals deck. She's gonna get to build a bunch of stuff. I think you could actually top with this character very easily early on, but I think after like Nationals, I think if this was set 2 where we were gonna have like all of like the summer events and stuff, this character would probably get washed out real fast. But you might see this character top in like a really crazy, super fast weird ally deck. But other than that, I don't know. Serious Momo. Well, I don't know, because Momo seems particularly kind of bad into these two decks, but Momo is still kind of nuts. She gets more tools, but I think we saw with the Gamer Toga list where, like, the answer is to just play 8-9 attacks, you know, and Eraserhead can kind of balance that out by just erasing you instead. So I think she'll be meta as fuck, but I don't think she's going to have a grip on the format where we've seen... Because, like, if Momo stays relevant, Gamer Toga stays relevant, right? Like, we've just seen that does work. It does work to just play 8 attacks in a row with the crazy amount of card draw that Toga gets. So, I'm going to put Momo here. I really want her to put her serious to kind of, like, have, like, a hot take that set 3 does nothing to her, but I don't think that's quite true. I think that set 3 does produce the string security. So, especially just Dry Eyes, One with Nature in general. I'm surprised that I don't really have like One with Nature decks up here yet, but you know, we're not through the list. Monoma. Monoma actually gets really cool in set 3 because almost every archetype got support, right? Like pretty much every keyword got new stuff to look for. So I'm gonna put him up here just because stealing your opponent's abilities isn't that tough for him. Playing a throw lineup isn't hard on any of his symbols. I think you're gonna see some really cool things from this character now that there's just a little more things that count keywords. So also he can give stuff ally, and that could be way more relevant than ever. Mount Lady's still a stinker. Her card's cool, but she's not. Nezu I want to put up here, man. I want Nezu to be meta so bad. It's going to take so much work. He's got some sick plays, but I don't think he gets paid in the same way All Might 3 does. Like, you're like, okay, it's cool if you draw because I draw, but All Might 3 is like, it's cool if you draw because you'll die if it's my turn. So, like, All Might encourages you not to. Nezu I don't think really does that. I don't think you're gonna get punished as much. Like, I draw random, you draw random, you know, whatever. But at the same time, I think you could put the work in and make this character top cut. Nomu's a stinker. Nomu's never topping again. I don't think the 10 damage, whatever, the 6 diff attack, Hulking Grimace. That's so cute. I'm glad for you guys. I'll still beat you at locals. You don't even get to win those. Ochako 2 is a locals deck now. Ochako 3 is a stinker. Ochako 1 is a locals deck now. She's always been like super consistent, but the fact that she doesn't really use that momentum for other stuff, you almost have to have like wealthy aspirations, or you know, the times when people are banking like multiple momentum with her to use for like later game meteor showers and stuff. Like, you probably already were just winning with any other character. You know, if I can hit you 3 times with Ochako after I use my response, and then I'm going to have to spend a whole nother turn killing you and using that momentum, like, that's really cool, but Meteor Shower was never that big of a deal to me, and you probably could have played a just stronger lineup that killed the first turn. 3 attacks is a lot now, man. She is getting One with Nature on Chaos. She is getting more ways to ready stuff, but I think we're finally going to see Faith Shield plus a combination of a few other things really just hate her way out of the format. Ojiro 2, this is going to be a character that you're going to see so much of in Nationals. You're going to, like, maybe I'm overselling this. Maybe people won't actually end up taking this, but people are going to play the absolute shit out of this character. I don't know if they're going to actually take it to Nats or if it'll be in tournaments, but people are going to love this character. His karate chop is super fucked up. It's like heroic strike for these 3 symbols, you know. They've been wanting a heroic strike, and now it's like even better. He plays the barrage attack so well with his foundation, but he doesn't have any defensive abilities, so I think he's still down here. I really don't like this character. It feels so bad to lose to him because he's just sending shit for like +4/+4. Like, like genuinely, right? You play rapid punches, you add in the hardened barrage attack, or I think it's, yeah, harden's the one that actually unflips, so really you do it the other way, but like, you know, you can just like add that in. It won't count towards progressive. It now gets +2/+2 from Ojiro, gets +1/+1 from itself. It's like a 7/7 with basically no input, and the next attack you play, you're going to get to pick one of them up and play it again. If you really need to or really want to, you can unflip it and do it again, and you can get more bonuses, and it doesn't count. And it's going to be a headache offensively, but defensively, I think he's still just a six-hander, right? And he doesn't really get to activate any of the cool card draw effects, so like defensive card draw effects. So I think he's still down here. This character is going to be rough if Momo is relevant at all. He just never gets to see play. He's really neat counter meta, and he should be able to beat like super silly wall decks, but he can't because they can blow up all their face downs. So sucks to be Ojiro. Meme deck. Recovery Girl is going to be a super serious deck that you're going to have to figure out how to beat, I think. Now this is, of these three, this is the big coin flip for me. This is the coin toss flip for me, because I think Eraserhead actually has enough damage to just like smoke her and just turn off her response. I think Asui, also can just overpower the number of cards you can build. Yeah, she can blow up. Like, it's gonna depend on her stage, right? And Asui has some tools to deal with the stage now. Once you get prone to dry eyes activations ticked up, it overcomes rigorous self-sacrifice a little bit. So Recovery Girl is like one of those. It's like the Mineta 2, but I've seen it in action to the point where she might fall into that category of beats the field, has two bad matchups, and therefore isn't actually valid, because these might be her two bad matchups. But man, I think this is very draw dependent. I think this becomes a bit of a, like, I think the skill matchup is there, but I think it becomes like a top deck war pretty quick as far as, did I get the right pieces out? Did I mill the right pieces early on, basically? So also, these two characters do get punked by just not having throw hate at the right time, right? So Recovery Girl, pretty spooky, does a good job against a lot of these decks too, right? Does a pretty good job against a deck that only wants to pump speed and punish you for blocking. Does pretty good against a deck that has to string out 6-7 attacks to really do anything, and doesn't put a bunch of numbers. I think she is pretty good against Denki as well, right? So it'll be interesting. This is a sick locals deck. Sato 2, draw 2 cards, +2 damage on everything. You can do a really good race car impression against Tokoyami 2, where he gets all the back alley haymakers, right? He gets the fire symbol if he wants. Super good. This is still going to be JJ tier. This is the order specialist. We saw Sato didn't even top cut at the last webcam regional, when I was really hoping to get that deck on stream. I kept talking about it and I was like ready for it, but it just never came about. Selkie is tough. That form gets better and better, but man, do slamming kick attacks just not come together on these symbols. I think he's going to stay a cool locals deck. Sero 2 gets a really nice attack. I think this is going to be the rogue deck of set 3. Is going to be Sero 1 and Sero 2 both, because of that Sero enhance. I still think Sero 1 is just way better, and like, people are talking about Villainous Waylay, but I don't know. I don't really know on that one. I don't know how consistent that deck will be. Like, yes, you get Villainous Waylay, you get all the extra cool special dunks. You get to change the zone and pick stuff. But Villainous Waylay doesn't share a symbol with Prone to Dry Eyes. It doesn't share a symbol with Passing the Torch. It doesn't share a symbol with... or it does share a symbol with Prone to Dry Eyes. I'm crazy. It has Void, right? Wait, let me check the symbols on Waylay. I thought it was Evil, Death, Chaos, but now I'm thinking it's got Void because it's discard. Okay, no, it does have Void. It does have Void. Okay. Yeah, so maybe he actually gets bumped up to the meta. Yeah, I think this will be a rogue deck that you can play like Searing Glacial Storm in and stuff and be really cute, but it's not going to be as relevant to like kick things from almost card pool. But with Prone to Dry Eyes, I think Fast and that just becomes enough numbers to make Sarah 1 a mainstay. He probably should have been a mainstay for a while now, but he's just not super fun to play. And as a six-hander, you end up having like he has to jump on people, right? He has to plan one full turn ahead and hit that turn when he wants for games. So a deck that has been very feast or famine in the past, I think he gets a lot of his issues shored up soon. Speaking of coin toss characters that can steamroll you, I'm working on some cool Shigaraki combos. He has a lot of high roll turns because of that momentum generation, but I don't think he puts everything together. He does have so many strong plays though, and he's not actually locked into the Fury lineup, even though he synergizes so well with it. Cleaning your card pool is so strong of an effect though, and if the right amount of foundation readying comes together, because he turns on requesting assistance, right? Like his whole thing is he commits foundations for cost, but he also gets a momentum for that. So requesting looks so good in him. But yeah, you could see enough foundation readying that he becomes meta, and he has some nasty plays. Shigaraki 1 stays a cool locals deck. By definition, this should be a JJ tier, a Jose tier deck, because Jose did just decide, look, I like Shigaraki. He should have topped by now, but it hasn't happened. So, but I think he's gonna get just a little bit worse. They gave him a really nice foundation that other people are just gonna use better. Like, I already block Merciless Rush. I already try to flip your foundations, commit them, deal with them somehow. So I don't think his new foundation is going to make him that crazy. Shinso, JJ couldn't even top with them. He's a stinker. Shiozaki Ibara has a sick new attack coming out. Has more momentum generation coming out. Could become meta, but is probably just up here, like very Ojiro-esque. Does actually have a defensive ability technically, but -1 damage is going to become less and less relevant as time goes on. I think we're shifting to a very big poke meta where your deck is either going to be like, here's a Super Detroit Smash 20 for 20, or it's going to play 9 attacks on you. And there's not going to be any in between. We're not going to see any more like Kiroshima 3 attack, Texas Smash, pass the turn, like attack, Texas attack, pass it back to you. It's going to be like 7 attacks or bust pretty soon. Shoji's a stinker. Everyone's mad that he puts counters on himself. I'm just mad that I actually really want to use him with 1-checks, because 4 times a turn, look at the top card of my deck, seems really sweet when I have 1-checks in my deck, but at the same time, that's just going to trick me into making a bad deck. Shoji 1 is still a stinker. He pays way too much life to get 1 card that other characters just get better. E-commit for +2/+2 damage, right? I have to play 2 attacks, just not super exciting, not a great effect. Snipe is going to be a character specialist. He's going to get a little more card draw. He's going to get a little more guaranteed burn. Snipe's going to be a character where you're going to have to really watch your health total coming up, because there is a lot of crazy burn effects coming down on his symbols, and luckily I don't think most of them are on ranged attacks, but a couple of them are, so be afraid of this character just putting the pieces together faster than you expect while having a really good 7 hand size defensive plan. Stain, I'm just gonna put Stain and Stinker real quick. Stain 2. People voted for this character over Shigaraki 2. He's gonna look really good while he's winning, but most of the time he's just gonna be a stinker. Tetsu is still a stinker. His attack is pretty fucking sick, but not sick enough in him. You know, stun 1 is cool, but I'll play that attacking better, people. 13, I think this is going to be a Jose tier character where she's going to have some really sick, super cool attack that you can't fuck with because she got rid of all your interaction when you tried to play it as a form. She's going to cancel that interaction when you try to play that ability during the attack. Really strong. You cannot EX this character to death, right? It's just very difficult to play. It's very difficult to build this deck around that response, but it's also going to be really difficult to play into it if you care about speed at all. And most decks that care about speed either do it on every attack, which is why she's down here, or they care about it on just one big attack, which is why all those characters are down here. Todoroki 2 has done surprisingly well, has had some pretty good recursion, but I think he's just a locals deck going forward. These numbers become less impressive as time goes on. The 6 hand size becomes less impressive, and more decks are going to be getting cool ways to get momentum, so you're going to get more and more punished by these decks getting played that want to add that momentum back to their hand. So I think he slides down. Todoroki 1's going to actually slide up a bit. Getting more ways to ready foundations is going to be huge. He's going to leech off a lot of the same attacks and a lot of the same strategies that Asui has, but because of that legitimate cost attached to him, he's, even when he had Amphibious, right, he just activated it so much harder than Asui. So I think he's going to stay right around here, which is probably where he's always been. Just he's not very pleasant to play. He has to wait a long time and pay a cost that is relevant on nearly every turn, and he also encourages you to run a lot of attacks, so you have to have a big deck, and there's so many hoops that you have to jump through to get this character firing on all cylinders. And as more cancels come out, like Nullify is just gonna kind of do his job, right? I think that's Toga stops being a little meta, but she's still gonna be just life pile good stuff. Anything that any of the life characters above her can do really well, she could probably do a great facsimile of. I talked about how creepy realization is probably going to hurt the gamer Toga deck style, but that still is an option, so she might stay meta relevant. And again, like if Momo bumps up and is still just crushing tournaments, right? If Momo is just really good into Recovery Girl still and has the defense for everyone else, like Toga is just going to come back. So I think a big part of this is Toga keeps Momo in check, but Momo sliding down means that Toga doesn't really get to keep her in check. And Toga's still pretty good against Eraserhead though. Don't forget that. Like Toga's still, a lot of her strength comes from little tiny stuff. So like erasing to get rid of 1 speed and the filter doesn't feel good, but you're gonna have to make those plays, right? So I think Eraser still gets to kind of edge her out. Tokoyami 2 is still a meme deck, but he has some sick plays. He's like a very fun meme deck, but he's still a meme deck. I'm actually gonna put him down here because my OCD is gonna go fucking crazy. He should make, well, he probably is kind of a stinker even with his really cool plays. Like he looks fun as fuck with Nitro Ignition. He gets to just kick like any card. You play Fury lineups, you can do some really cool stuff. But again, the ally cards just aren't quite there for him yet, and it's gonna be like one more set. I think Ally Tokoyami 2 is gonna pop off next set. I think there's gonna be an Ally character in that set. I feel like there's gonna be a bunch of villains soon. Like we've had so many Class 1A characters and so few villains, and I know they outnumber them, and I know they're more popular and blah blah blah, but I think we're gonna get a bunch of villains. One of those villains is gonna be like a Twice or some cloning or whatever. I don't know what they all do, but there's gonna be some character who cares about having other people around him, or like can't do his ability by himself even, right? Like what's that little horn girl? I think she's like does nothing by herself, but she makes your quirk more powerful. So she's probably gonna be like all about ally cards or some shit where it's like, I don't actually fight, my brother does. Or I haven't seen the anime, I'm sorry guys, I just really like the card game. Ubami. She looks like a very interesting deck. She's going to have some really big plays coming up soon. Focused attack Ubami just seems kind of like paint by the numbers, right? She has a lot of recursion, and that's why I'm going to put her up here. I'm going to put her up here because she has great ways to find what she needs and hold on to them. You know, that childhood friends on face kind of a thing is pretty strong, so we're going to rock it. We're going to rock it with Ubami down here. I think she might show up at our meta just a little bit. And then finally, the bird. The bird is the word. Tokoyami 1. Whoa, I did not mean to put it in stickers. Tokoyami 1 is a thing a lot of people are raving about. He's looking so strong next set. I think the weird thing is that it's just more of the same, right? Like, he's gonna have massive twisting Azure Inferno plays, but anybody who plays Go for the win is gonna have massive twisting Azure Inferno plays. So I don't know if he's just gonna be the best deck who can already do that. But I don't, and like that opens up chaos to him, which does give him better defense. But I actually think that these three decks kind of gatekeep him. I don't know for sure. This one could be kind of a race car sort of a thing. This is going to be the kind of matchup where you're going to race him so he doesn't get Summon Dark Shadow and lose because he has one hand already. And you just don't overcome the stats somehow. Like, Recovery Girl, I think, is actually going to have plenty of game against him with stat resets and like card pool clogging. He's going to have tons of bonuses to his checks, but like if you're playing the water version and you have So Manly out, like you can just actually add that progressive difficulty, and it's going to take a really experienced Tokoyami player to sort of come up with a plan B with an alternate win condition. So I also think that as this set 3 format kind of hits, like tighter knit decks do run the risk of getting hit by certain weird mill strategies. So you got to be careful about that. Like, I do expect like 50 card decks from Asui's. I expect erasers to be anywhere from 50 to 75. Like, you could really be all over the place. And Recovery Girls you expect to be like 70-ish again. But they could be 50 to specifically see their really strong pieces that they maybe only need one of. So I think Tokoyami and Recovery Girl might switch after Nats, after we have some better information. I could easily see this being just like a solid deck that people will always like run the risk of, and like Tokoyami just actually dunks her, and then we're back to like 3 best 7-handers. Eraserhead could continue to just struggle where like really good players play him, but then they can't assemble the pieces, and it's just not quite as blindingly aggressive as these two characters. But this is where I'm at. This is what I'm expecting to see at Nats. These are decks I'm expecting to see in Top Cuts at Nationals. These are decks I'm expecting to win Nationals. So this is my first take outlook. Yeah, this is it. Yeah, I don't see anything that really... Normally by the end of a tier list, you're kind of like, ooh, I want to move some stuff around, but I think this is about right. I think maybe this Shigaraki could come down. Maybe this Sato could come down one. You know, maybe one of these 7-handers could go up into the meta, but it'll be super interesting to see. Yeah, thank you guys for joining me in the chat. Thank you if you're watching on YouTube at a later date. Let me know in the comments below, what did I get wrong? What do you agree with? Who would you put in your S tier? And most importantly, who are you expecting to see at Nationals in the Top Cuts? Well, player or character, but I guess for the tier list it'd be characters. Tell me what characters you guys want to see in the Top Cuts at Nationals. Yeah, I'm going to be there. I hope to see you guys over in Dallas. And I'll tell you right now, I'm looking at playing Asui like face value. I think I'm going to enjoy playing Recovery Girl, but I think Asui is going to be just a little bit better. But all of these top 2 tiers are probably decks I'm going to try. Like, I'm down to play Midnight with Somnambulism. I'm super down to play Mei in a late game situation. All Might 3 looks like he's going to have really cheesy strats, so a lot of this stuff could be wrong, but if I'm looking to maximize my potential right now on a blank slate at the deck building stage, Eraserhead, Asui, and Recovery Girl are the decks I'm looking out for. So, anyways, thanks you guys for checking this out. I will catch you all later. Till next time, peace.